A letter arrives, sealed tight, heavy. You don't know what's inside, but you know it'll change everything. I'm a new creature now, but the nights, they never end. Those are the words written inside, words from behind concrete walls. Back in 2018, a Colorado family tragedy shocked the entire nation. Headlines everywhere, news coverage for weeks. The world watched in horror. Now it's 2025, 7 years later, and there's a different story unfolding. A story most people never hear. A story from inside Wisconsin's prison walls. Someone is writing letters. Letters that reveal things nobody talks about. Letters about daily survival, about fear, about loneliness, about regret. The person writing claims he's changed, says he's found peace inside. But then he writes this: redemption sounds like tears in the dark. What does that mean? Why would redemption sound like crying? Would you read that letter? Would you want to know what's inside? I did. And what I found, it's darker than you can imagine. Stick with me, because what you're about to hear isn't what you expect. This isn't just about one person. It's about a system, a reality, a daily hell that happens behind bars. Right now, every single day. So let's go back. How did someone from Colorado end up in Wisconsin? After the 2018 tragedy, authorities faced a serious problem. Security threats everywhere. Other inmates made it clear. This person couldn't stay in Colorado. Too dangerous. Death threats came in. Violence was promised. Every single day brought new risks. So officials made a decision. Transfer him far away. To Wisconsin. Not just any Wisconsin facility. Dodge Correctional Institution. Maximum security. This place was built for the worst cases. The most dangerous inmates. 23 hours locked in a cell. Every day. No exceptions. 1 hour outside. That's all you get. 60 minutes of freedom daily. Think about that. 23 hours staring at the same four walls. The routine starts at 5 a.m. No alarm clock needed. Buzzers wake you. Strip search. Right away. Before you even fully wake up. Then count. Guards count every inmate, making sure nobody's missing. Breakfast comes through a slot, a narrow opening in the metal door. You don't walk to a cafeteria. You don't sit with other people. Your tray slides through. You eat alone. You eat in silence. Then what? You wait. You sit. You think. 4 hours. Maybe you get work detail if you're lucky. But in maximum security, rarely. Chris has gym access sometimes. But that's a privilege. Not a right. Even gym time comes with danger. Other inmates watching. Guards observing. In a place designed for maximum security, everyone looks for weakness. One wrong move, you're done. One wrong look. Trouble starts fast. The tension never stops. It hangs in the air like smoke. You feel it when you walk. You feel it when you breathe. You feel it most at night, when darkness makes everything worse. By 2025, things change a bit. Chris got moved to medium security. That sounds better, right? Less restrictions, more programs available. But here's the truth. The isolation, that never really goes away. The walls might look different. The rules might be slightly looser. But the loneliness, that grows, that spreads, that consumes you. Have you ever been completely alone for even one full day? Most people can't handle it. They crack. They need human contact. Now imagine that every day. 4 months. 4 years. 4 forever. Research shows something shocking. 80% of inmates have severe sleep problems. 80%. They're exhausted but can't sleep. Anxiety won't let them. Every sound at night might be danger. Every footstep might be threat. So they lie awake, staring at darkness, waiting for morning. That's the reality Chris lives. That's the daily hell inside Wisconsin walls. Now let's discuss faith. Because in Chris's cell, one book never leaves. The Bible. He reads it daily, studies it, quotes it constantly. At Dodge Correctional, Bible study groups meet once or twice weekly. Inmates gather together. They read verses. They discuss. They pray. For many, this is the only positive interaction they get all week. It's not just religion. It's connection. It's community. It's humanity. In his 2025 letters, Chris calls himself a servant of God now. He talks about purpose, about using prison time for spiritual growth. But experts say something important. This happens in prison constantly. About 70% of inmates turn to religion during their time inside. Is it genuine? Sometimes yes. Is it survival? Often yes. Both? Usually. A criminologist who studies prison culture explained it this way. Faith becomes armor. It protects inmates from isolation psychological damage. It gives structure when everything else is chaos around them. But there's a darker side. Something Chris hints at but won't say outright. Verses get read aloud during group sessions. Everyone nods in agreement. But then lights go out, and you're alone again. Back in that cell. The doubts, they scream, louder than any sermon, louder than prayers. I read about forgiveness, Chris wrote recently. But can I forgive myself? I talk about being new. But at night, I'm still me. That's the daily battle, the hourly struggle, the constant fight between who you're trying to become and who you were before, between the person you present in letters and who you are in darkness. Faith offers hope, real hope, but it can't erase memory. It can't undo what's done. It can't change the past. And in a place like Dodge, where isolation amplifies everything, even Scripture's comfort comes with sharp edges, painful reminders. Even God can't bridge that gap, Chris wrote in December. What gap? Between him and the outside world. Him and forgiveness. Him and peace. The Bible study sessions help. They give routine. They provide meaning. But they also highlight what's missing. Real connections. Real relationships. Real life. You sit in a circle with other inmates. You read together. You share thoughts. But everyone in that circle, they're broken too. They're struggling too. You're all trying to fix each other with words, with faith, with hope. But deep down, everyone knows you're in hell together. Together is still hell. The pages of the Bible, the quiet moments of reflection, they're real. They matter. They help people survive another day, another week, another year. But they're also a bandage on a wound that won't stop bleeding. When the session ends, you go back to your cell, alone, again, always again. That's when the real test starts. That's when faith either holds or breaks. And some nights, it breaks. It shatters. It disappears completely, leaving you with nothing but darkness, and questions, and tears. Here's where the story gets truly painful, where hell becomes personal. Chris has no family visits. None. Zero. Not a single one. The families affected by 2018, they made their choice. No contact. Ever. Can anyone blame them? No. Absolutely not. Nobody could. Nobody would. But from Chris's perspective, from inside those walls every day, that's torture. A special kind of torture. Hell within hell. No visits means no physical presence. No hugs. No handshakes. No touch. His only connection to the outside? Those pen pal letters we discussed. And even those, they're monitored. Limited. Controlled completely. Holidays hit hardest, he wrote last year. Christmas. Thanksgiving. My birthday. Everyone else gets calls. Gets visits. Gets care packages. I get nothing. And I know why. I know I deserve this. This is hell I created myself. According to 2025 Department of Corrections records, Chris had 0 visitors. 0. 0 on his birthday. 0 on Christmas. 0 on any single day. The visiting log for his name? Completely blank. Year after year. After year. Imagine waking up on your birthday behind bars. Nobody's coming. Nobody's calling. Nobody's even acknowledging you're alive, that you exist, that you matter. For most inmates, visits are everything, what they live for daily. They count down days until mom visits, until sister comes, until friend arrives. But Chris, he counts down to nothing, because nothing's ever coming. The pen pal bonds he's formed, they're absolute lifelines. They keep him alive. These are people he's never met, people who wrote first out of curiosity. Maybe they study psychology. Maybe they're religious volunteers helping inmates. Maybe they just believe everyone deserves someone to talk to. Whatever the reason, these letters keep him breathing. Mentally, emotionally. But here's the catch. Those letters are still monitored. Still limited completely. He can't write about certain things. Can't receive certain things. Can't build real relationships. It's connection with a wall between it. Humanity kept at arm's length. Silence isn't golden, Chris wrote this year. It's suffocating. It's deadly slow. Some days I wonder if anyone remembers I'm a real person anymore. The weight of regret in these letters? It's crushing. Absolutely crushing. You feel it in every sentence, every paragraph, every single word choice. I did this to myself. I know that truth. But knowing doesn't make it easier. I wake up remembering what I took from the world, who I took away, and then I remember I'm still here, still breathing, still existing somehow. Is that fair? I don't know anymore. I don't know anything clearly anymore. Prison officials say Chris's behavior has been stable recently. No major incidents. He follows rules, attends programs, participates when asked to join. But stable behavior doesn't mean peace inside. It just means survival mode. It means learning to exist in a space designed purely to punish. And part of that punishment, the no-contact reality, the isolation, the void. Here's something that'll shake you down to your core right now. When fights break out in the facility, when there's lockdown or emergency, nobody's calling Chris's family. Because there's nobody to call, nobody to notify, nobody who would care. He's alone in ways most people can't comprehend. Even by prison standards, other inmates get support from outside. Letters from mom, money from dad on commissary. Chris gets letters from strangers. That's it. That's his entire support system. And when things get really bad, when darkness gets too heavy to carry, there's nobody coming to pull him out. Nobody to visit. Nobody to remind him he's loved. Just walls and silence and an echo of his own thoughts bouncing back. Let's talk about what happens in the yard. The place where masks drop completely. This is where the civilized act of prison falls apart instantly. The yard is where status gets tested, where reputations get built or destroyed. And Chris? His reputation arrived before he ever did. In prison, certain crimes get you labeled, marked, targeted forever. What Chris did in 2018. That's the kind of thing inmates never forget. Ever. They know. Word spreads incredibly fast behind bars. Faster than you'd imagine. So when Chris walks into that yard, eyes follow him. Whispers start immediately. That's him. That's the guy. You know what he did, right? Some inmates want to test him. See if he'll fight. See if he's weak inside. Others, they just want to make his life harder. Any way possible. One wrong look. That's all it takes. One accidental stare too long. What are you looking at? And suddenly it's on. Fighting breaks out fast. Guards can't stop it quick enough. By the time they reach you, damage is done. Chris has learned to keep his head down. Eyes forward always. Mouth shut tight. But even that's not enough. Being high profile makes you a target regardless. Here's something that'll chill you completely. Something from those letters. Chris overheard a conversation late one night. Voices carrying through cell blocks. A guard and an inmate. Talking, laughing, not knowing anyone was listening close. You hear that crying last night? One voice said clearly. From which cell? That one. End of the block. Goes on for hours sometimes. And then the response. The one showing exactly how dehumanizing this place is. He cries at night. Good. Just that. Just good. Like suffering is entertainment. Like pain is deserved punishment. Maybe it was about Chris. Maybe it wasn't. The letter didn't say clearly. But either way, it reveals the atmosphere, the culture, the everyday cruelty. In prison, showing emotion is weakness. Crying? That's blood in the water instantly. Other inmates see it as vulnerability. Guards see it as, well, you heard their response. By 2025, Chris's behavior record shows stability. No major fights. No violations. But that doesn't mean tension isn't there. It just means he's learned to navigate it. He's learned when to walk away, when to stay silent, when to blend in completely. But isolation amplifies everything. Every sound, every voice, every footstep at night. You hear someone walking past your cell at 2 a.m., your heart races instantly. You hear shouting 3 cells down. You wonder if you're next on the list. You hear crying. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's someone else. Maybe it doesn't matter anymore. The dark makes everything worse. Way worse. Because you can't see what's coming. You just hear. And imagine. And wait. And fear. In the dark, tears aren't weakness, Chris wrote. They're the only release allowed. The only time you can admit this place is breaking you piece by piece. Because admitting it during the day, that's not safe. That's not allowed here. Think about that deeply. Having to hide your pain during daylight hours completely. Having to act tough, act stable, act like you're fine when you're not. And only in complete darkness, when nobody can see you. That's when you can break. That's when you can feel what you're actually feeling inside. The yard shows the violence, the fights, the territorial battles between inmates. But nighttime, that shows the psychological warfare, the mental breakdown, the slow erosion of self. So here we are, 2025, 7 years since those original tragic events. The question everyone's asking, has Chris really changed? Or is he just surviving daily? His letters claim self-forgiveness. They talk about growth, about spiritual transformation. He says he's not the same person who entered prison. Says he's been reborn completely. But experts, they're not convinced. And honestly, it's impossible to know for sure. Psychologists who study incarceration say this. Change is possible. It definitely happens. But real change requires more than just time. More than just reading scripture daily. It requires therapy, community support, processing trauma, building new healthy patterns. And in a place like Dodge, with ongoing isolation, those resources are extremely limited. Chris has access to some programs. Bible study like we discussed. Maybe group therapy sessions. But intensive psychological rehabilitation, the kind that creates lasting change, that's rare. That's expensive. That's not prioritized in most facilities like this. So what we're left with is uncertainty. A person claiming change with limited proof. Is his faith genuine? Maybe. Is his regret real? Probably yes. But is he fundamentally different? Or has he just learned to cope with impossible circumstances? One prison reform advocate put it this way recently. We ask if inmates have changed, but we don't ask what environment they're changing in. Imagine trying to heal in the place that's actively traumatizing you. Every single day. That's the paradox. Prison is supposed to rehabilitate, but mostly it just punishes hard. And punishment, that doesn't automatically equal change. Sometimes it just equals broken survival. Wisconsin has made reforms. We mentioned those earlier. Better classification systems now. More programming available. More attention to mental health. More humane treatment standards overall. But Chris's situation shows the limits clearly. He's in medium security now. That's progress. He has more freedom than 2018. More access to programs. Better conditions overall. But the isolation, that persists. The no-contact situation, still there. The targeting, still ongoing. So reforms help. But they don't fix everything. They can't fix everything wrong. Here's the real question. Is this redemption? Or just resignation to fate? Has Chris found peace? Or has he just found a way to endure another day? Maybe it's both. Maybe redemption in prison looks different than redemption outside. Maybe finding a way to wake up every day and not completely fall apart. Maybe that's its own form of change, its own kind of victory somehow. So what do we take from this story? What does it teach us? What does Chris's daily hell show us about the system? About justice? About humanity itself? Here's what's clear. Isolation as punishment works. It destroys people, breaks them down completely. But does it rehabilitate? Does it make someone better? That's way less clear. The systemic failures are obvious. No contact with loved ones. Limited mental health support available. Environments that traumatize more than they heal. Policies that punish more than they prepare. Chris's situation is extreme. Most inmates have some outside support. Some visitors. Some hope. But his extreme case shows us what happens when the system is pushed to its absolute limits. It shows us what pure isolation does to a human being over years, over time, over decades. Prison reform advocates say this. We need to decide what we want prisons to actually do. Punish? They already do that. Incredibly effectively. Without question. But prepare people for reentry. Build skills. Address trauma. We're failing there completely. The hope in Chris's Bible study? That's real. Faith helps people survive impossible situations. But survival isn't the same as thriving. Isn't the same as healing properly. The outreach from pen pals? That's beautiful. Human connection matters deeply. But monitored letters aren't the same as real relationships. Real support systems that last. So where does that leave us? What should happen next in these situations? These are questions without easy answers. Questions requiring uncomfortable conversations about justice, about mercy, about what we owe to victims, what we owe to society as a whole, and what we owe to the humanity of even those who've done horrible things. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe for more deep dives into true crime, into prison realities, into systemic issues. What do you think should happen next for prison reform? For people serving life sentences? Should faith and behavior changes matter? Should isolation ever end completely? These are questions worth discussing, worth debating, worth taking seriously. Because somewhere tonight, Chris is in his cell, writing another letter, claiming change, claiming hope, claiming redemption. And somewhere else, families are still mourning, still hurting, still missing their loved ones forever. Both things are true. Both realities exist. Both matter. This isn't a story with a clean ending, with clear answers, with satisfying resolution. It's messy. It's complicated. It's ongoing. Just like real life. Just like real justice. Just like real humanity. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for thinking about these hard questions with me. Until next time.